we learned so much about what really is needed for a young or a micro entrepreneur in a low-income community to actually thrive and grow their business. First, they need to change their mind. They need to understand they are entrepreneurs. It's very, very common in most of the women entrepreneurs we support is the time they start doing good, they share what they learn. That's why it's so powerful to support these entrepreneurs, because the power of sharing, the multiplier effect, it's so amazing.
Hello and welcome to Brazil is Not for Beginners. Today I have an exciting guest. Lina Kempf is one of the co-founders of Aliança Empreendedora. Lina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Isaac. Pleasure to be here.
So I came across your organization in my research, frankly, of partners that we might be able to work with my old startup, and was really impressed with the work that you do promoting micro-entrepreneurship and working with small entrepreneurs, often of lower income levels. And so I'm really excited that you've come on to talk about the work that you do, which is really exciting and really impactful and very important. But before we get into the organization itself, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what you did before Aliança Empreendedora?
Definitely. So I'm Lina, I'm from Colombia. Actually, I was born in Colombia, been living in Brazil for more than 25 years. My parents are Christian missionaries, so I've been moving a lot.
Amazing.
I have an Argentinian brother, so it's a very Latin American family. I'm married to a Brazilian. I have two kids, two Brazilian children, so it's very multicultural here. But I started my journey in Brazil. I moved to Brazil when I was a teenager, so I did my career here. I studied business administration here in the south of Brazil, in Curitiba, where I'm actually living. And that was when everything changed. I had an idea that you needed to get a good degree and find a good job, and that's it. That's what you needed to do with your life and have a good family. And in this working and studying in this university, I actually happened that I met a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that were doing many different things and choosing paths that were so different from the things I thought it was the traditional path. And it was amazing, it was very inspiring to meet these young people starting businesses, starting social ventures, something that I'm talking about more than 20 years ago, where that was not that common, talking about social ventures and social organizations. So it was a very special moment where many young people were actually thinking different and thinking about building their own ventures and building their own solutions for the world. So it was very, very inspiring for me. I was very lucky to be at the perfect time in the perfect place.
This was in Curitiba.
This was in Curitiba, yeah, south of Brazil.
Amazing.
And I was very lucky to be really inspired by these people and had the opportunity to start engaging with different initiatives. And one of them was the junior enterprise, that is students movement inside the universities, where you have the opportunity to work with projects for the community. So for example, I was in the business school, so we had a junior enterprise that provided business plans and marketing plans and financial planification for micro businesses and small businesses in the city.
Very cool.
So that was an amazing experience. So we had the opportunity to interact with entrepreneurs that were dealing with the real world, because unfortunately at that time, the things we were learning in the classroom was very disconnected from the reality. So we were learning about entrepreneurship in books.
Yeah, very different.
Yes, it's very different. And talking about stories of huge entrepreneurs, that is just 0.01% of the entrepreneurs in the world. And we had no connection and no notion of the reality when we're talking about entrepreneurship, at least in Brazil. So it was one amazing opportunity to be in contact with the real entrepreneurs on the ground. And then by working with those entrepreneurs, and I also had the opportunity to connect with social entrepreneurs in the northeast of the country that were supporting young entrepreneurs in low-income communities. And that was changing everything.
Very cool.
That's how Aliança Empreendedora started. It was very inspiring to see that we could have a professional career doing good and doing well at the same time. And that was something that was possible.
That's really amazing. Having those experiences is really important when you realize that the journey that you thought you had to be on isn't necessarily the one you have to continue on. Kind of paradigms shift a little bit in terms of where you think you need to go and what is important to do. And that's amazing that you were in that place at that time. I also really like the way that you've been using the word entrepreneur because I think that you're talking about a different type of entrepreneur. And I want to talk about that later than what I usually talk about on this program when I'm talking to entrepreneurs. So these are not venture backed businesses. These are not people trying to build billion-dollar businesses, although I'm sure they would love to run billion-dollar businesses. But these are people that are being entrepreneurial more from a natural state and running micro businesses and just trying to move up in the world and kind of build some economic sustainability. So you talked a little bit about kind of the inspiration there for Alianza Emprendedora, but how did you actually create the organization? So you were in school, you were doing these projects. Did you work professionally for a little while? Did you go right into creating Alianza Emprendedora with some friends? Did it kind of evolve organically? Can you talk a little bit about how the organization itself was created? And I'll follow up with a question, although feel free to go into it. But what exactly does Alianza Emprendedora do?
Sure. So, yeah, it started right there at the university, and it was an inspiration from another organization in the northeast of the country that was started by a group of junior enterprise alumni in the northeast. And a group of people in Curitiba got in contact with this other initiative through a national event. And they were so inspired, this group here was so inspired with the initiative that they decided to bring it to Curitiba, copy and paste the model and just do it here. Basically, the initiative was to support young people in favelas and in low income communities, young entrepreneurs that wanted to start businesses in fashion mostly. It didn't work because you don't do that. You don't copy and paste and everything is going to be great. It's not a franchise, and even franchises don't work like that.
No.
But it was a very rich experience to learn a lot. So this project started in 2004 in Curitiba when we started to support young people in some communities here in the city. And it was very hard because we had no idea what we were doing. We thought because we had business school backgrounds, we will know exactly what to
Usually
do
you
and
don't.
how to support these young entrepreneurs. And we actually realized that the reality is so different than the theory. And it was the year where we learned so much about what really is needed for a young or a micro entrepreneur in a low income community to actually thrive and grow their business. It's not the business plan, it's not a lot of content. Um, First, they need to change their mind. They need to understand they are entrepreneurs. They need to realize that what they have in their hands is a business. And then comes the development of skills that they need to manage the business, the skills you need to reach for a client, the skills you need to adapt. Every time you talk to a client, you need to adapt. So we learned so much. It was like in 1 year, we learned more than 10 years.
That's always how it works.
Exactly.
I know that we're heading in a certain direction, but you've mentioned expression provides support a couple times. So maybe you could talk a little bit actually about some of those learnings and we'll get back to the story of how you created Alianza Emprendedora. But what were the support you were trying to provide?
We started by providing business plan orientation. So we had this huge manual of things they needed to have. And so we started to help them to create their marketing plans and market research. And actually, we put them through a whole of effort and sometimes for nothing. And sometimes they learn a lot in the process. But what we did learn at the beginning is that the business plan is great if it helps you to move forward, but it's awful if it makes you freeze, right? So what we see is some people looked at that business plan and say, "Oh my God, this is not for me. I'm not going to be able
Yeah.
to do this. This is too hard. This is too big. This is too complex, etc." So we started to understand that to start a business is you need different things, not a bunch of paper with a lot of information that could not be useful in the real world. So that we started with that business plan. And then, thank God, we realized that we needed to change and shift everything. And we encountered a different methodology. But then Alianza was born inside this huge lab of learning, leading with micro entrepreneurs, being there, exchanging experiences with them, building the business plans. We started to understand what was actually the things they really needed and the things they really could use as a tool to move forward. That's our main concern. And that's when Alianza was born. We changed the entire methodology, we changed the entire mindset behind what we were doing. And then Alianza was born to provide empowerment, capacity building, and connection. That was the three pillars. We strengthened the three pillars for the micro entrepreneurs. And I can tell you a little bit more about the theory that is behind that. But we were born like in the middle of this amazing laboratory of experience.
That's really cool. I love that. And I think that's very entrepreneurial of you and the team as well to go out with an idea and pivot with it and listen to your customers or listen to your audience and understand who they are and what they are. So I want to get into the specific programs you offer, but what would also be really helpful, I think, for everybody listening, you provide some really nice statistics on your site about the
Yeah.
importance of these micro entrepreneurs. So I think here you said, 99% of the registered businesses in Brazil are micro enterprises. It's more than half of the formal jobs that are registered in Brazil, and it's more than 30% of its GDP. Can you talk a little bit more about this segment of micro entrepreneurs, who they are, what they're doing, and their importance to the economy and, nationally as well as kind of locally?
Definitely. And one of the reasons that we do what we do actually is because of that. I mean, the micro entrepreneurs in Brazil, they hold the key. I always like to say that they hold the key to our economical and social development. They are the base of the entrepreneurial pyramid. As you mentioned, they are 99% of the entrepreneurs. But I want to break it down a little bit more. So we have in that base different levels of entrepreneurs as well.
Hmm.
And so Aliança Empreendedora is working with the base of the pyramid, with the entrepreneurs that they don't know they are entrepreneurs. And in this base, we have informal entrepreneurs, people working in informality. They don't have registered business. They have economic activities to provide income to their families. And we actually ran our study 3 years ago using the official data from the government to understand what would be the impact in the economy if we have a public policy or a structured support for informal entrepreneurs in the base of the pyramid,
Hmm.
the ones that are in low income communities. So we did this research. We hired an economics institute of research, and they projected some indicators that if you have a public policy and a structured support to micro entrepreneurs in low income communities that are informal, if you empower them, train them, connect them, and help them to formalize, get registered, it's possible to inject $100 billion in the economy, and you could lift at least 5 million people out of the poverty line in 4 years. 5 million people at
That's
least.
amazing.
So it is amazing. I mean, that's the power of micro entrepreneurship. And that's why we do what we do. And that's why we invest a lot of our time. And Allianz is growing. And I'll tell you more about it because it is, in fact, one of the main forces of the economy in Brazil, and it has a lot of potential still. There's a lot of people working without access to credit. They are working without access to support, to
Yeah.
orientation, capacity building that is tailor made for them. We're talking about people that don't have a degree. Many of them haven't finished elementary school.
Yeah.
So you need to adapt the language, you need to adapt the materials, you need to adapt everything to make sense for them, and so they can get empowered to take the next step.
Amazing. I think that there's a lot around that. And we talked a lot about that at my startup, but also in the work I've done around financial inclusion and stuff about the language, the format, the form, right? I really liked what you said earlier about the business plan and how it can be intimidating. Just seeing a lot of paper for somebody that maybe can barely read is just an intimidating thing. And how do you create on ramps for people? And also, how do you kind of keep them from easily falling off ramps? So, training, and I've done a lot of training in my day and capacity building, quote unquote, for financial inclusion. And when you build a course and you have to come every Tuesday, like the entrepreneur's not gonna be able to come every Tuesday because the kid got sick or something happened. And so
Exactly.
how do you keep them on board? So I want to go deeper about some of these entrepreneurs as well in your public, but maybe before that, what we can do is it'd be great to hear a little bit about the programs that you guys offer now and how some of that evolved, because I think that'll be directly related as well to who your public is and how you interact with them, because I think that's also really, really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So, what we do basically is provide trainings, mentoring, and acceleration support for these micro entrepreneurs. We do A lot of projects around the year, like 25 projects per year. We have a team of 40 people, and we actually have like 100 people working if you sum all the
Yeah,
consultants. And we support around 40,000 to 50,000 entrepreneurs per year for the past
amazing.
3 years. They go through our journey that is very tailor made for each project. But you have people coming through the platform where they can do an entire online course. They're going to find video lessons that are short, so it's micro learning. They can find the answers they need. We have content on the online platform that goes from how to get empowered, how to start a business, to how to set up your Instagram page and connect with your clients, goes through how to use your WhatsApp, your business WhatsApp, to financial management, to financial planning, to how to get a credit, how to get prepared to access credit. There are many contents for the very different stages that the entrepreneurs are in that base of the pyramid. So we have a lot of content focused on women entrepreneur, on Black entrepreneurs, because we know there are very specificities in terms of the self-confidence they have, that we need to target, because that's the beginning of everything. So we understood that if an entrepreneur don't see themselves as entrepreneurs or don't have this self-esteem and the self-confidence in place, they cannot move forward.
Yeah.
And all the content and all the capacity building will be for nothing, because that person will think that she's not capable, or that's not for me because I'm not an entrepreneur. So that's the most important part of our work, is to help the entrepreneurs in a journey of self-discovery, of self-awareness, in such a way. That's where we put a lot of our energy. And then people go through the journey of capacity building because they already understand, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, so I need to organize my finances. Hey, I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, so I need to get registered. I'm an entrepreneur, so I need to understand how to use my business WhatsApp. It's super interesting that they had all the tools there all the time, but the realization and the click that now that is for me, that is the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
So we focus on projects. We are funded by companies and big foundations. So our business model basically is we deliver projects in partnership with companies that have interest in different audience. For example, we have a huge chain of supermarkets that most of their clients are micro entrepreneurs in the food industry. So they want to position themselves and their brand as a partner of the micro entrepreneurs.
Very cool.
So they hire us to develop a huge program, a national program to support micro entrepreneurs in the food industry. So we're talking about the lady that makes cakes and sweets for parties, for birthday parties. It's very simple. She's not formal. She's doing it in her kitchen. And we're also talking about the micro entrepreneur that has a small bar or a small restaurant in their garage.
Selling marmitas on the street, right?
Exactly. People that sell on the street. So people that have the small restaurant in their garage. So all these kind of entrepreneurs, they have a potential to grow and to be very prosperous. So this supermarket, for example, they have a big program every year where we select from a pool of 25,000 entrepreneurs. They go through a journey of support, capacity building. We use online platforms. We use WhatsApp Live, and we do have in-presence immersions for them as well. So there are very different types of supports we provide in many different projects. We work with almost 20 companies per year that hire Aliança Empreendedora to develop programs. And we also have 4 programs that are permanent. So we do have our web platform.
I was going to ask about those. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have the permanent programs. So we have Tamo Junto, which is our online platform where you can find all you need for your business in very short video lessons that can get you to do the things you need to do.
And so just for people that know, I want to hear about the other programs, but Tamo Junto is like we're together, right?
We are together. Yes,
It's like a very informal way of saying
exactly.
we're together. So a strong name, well positioned. But talk about the other three.
It's a strong name. Yeah. And people use that phrase a lot. Tamo junto. It means I'm with you. I mean, we are in this together. It's a very strong, actually, statement in Brazil. So Tamo junto, it's the platform where you can find this micro learning and you can do an entire journey as well of capacity building with us.
Yeah, but I think, sorry to just kind of take us off this, but I think it's an important expression because it's also something that if you ever do business in Brazil, people will write that to you. So it's very used in business when you're, okay, you know, you make a plan, you go tamo junto, you'll often get somebody texting you TMJ, which is the kind of abbreviation for it. So just reiterating for the people that are listening, if they've ever gotten that and wondered why somebody sent it to them, this is the reason in the name. But please talk about the other programs. So I think you were going to talk about
It's great. Yeah, you need to, so everybody can understand, right?
context set. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, the second program is the mentoring program. So we do have a mentoring program where we connect micro entrepreneurs with mentors. This is a huge volunteer program. So it's people from all over Brazil and some people from abroad that want to dedicate a few hours per week or a few hours per month to mentor a micro entrepreneurs and using the knowledge they have or the experience they have. Maybe there are entrepreneurs that are more evolved or are people in business that are executives and understand a lot about finance, for example. So these are volunteers and people that want to share their knowledge and exchange time with micro entrepreneurs to help them to be accountable with their goals, be accountable with the things they want to achieve. So it's an amazing program. And this is a permanent program. So everyone that would like to receive the orientation of a mentor, just log in the portal and the platform will do the match at any time. And for the mentors as well, if you want to be a mentor, you can log in our platform and you will be matched with a micro entrepreneur and you will receive a training from our team to get prepared to mentor
Very
these
cool.
entrepreneurs. Then we have a program that is more focused on the textile industry, in the fashion industry. We have been working a lot in this sector, talking about fair and sustainable fashion. It's a huge issue all around the world, especially in Brazil. We have a lot of issues with almost slavery conditions in the
Yeah.
textile industry. So we have been working a lot for many years, empowering local shops and entrepreneurs in the textile industry so they can get out of this chain of exploitation and can start selling their services to more qualified buyers so they can earn more and working less. So this is a very cool program where we have actually gathered all the projects that are involved fashion and textile, handcraft, and many projects. And we're moving also to the creative economy, the circular economy.
Okay. Very cool.
So it's pretty cool. So we have many projects in this. We have a lot of brands that actually support this program as well. And the last program is very cool as well, of course. I find
Of course.
everything cool.
Yeah. We
And
wouldn't
our
want it to
last,
be any other way.
yeah, right. Our last permanent program is called Emprender 360. It's an advocacy program. So we work influencing public policy. Basically, Emprender is a program where we gather the ecosystem around the micro entrepreneur and we co create solutions for public policy. We co create solutions for the ecosystem to be more effective when it comes to working with micro entrepreneurs. So Alianza is supporting directly micro entrepreneurs in the ground, but we are also strengthening the ecosystem and influencing public policy. So now we are in the steering committee
Okay.
of 5 public policies, national public policies, where we actually give advice to the government in different programs that
That's amazing.
will affect the micro entrepreneurs in the ground. And it's been amazing to do that. And another cool thing that I really love is that we are not only influencing public policy as an organization, but we are bringing the organizations and the micro entrepreneurs. We fly
Yeah.
them to Brasilia every year so they can have very high quality discussions with policymakers.
That's
So we
amazing.
promote these dialogues because Brazil is gigantic and is very
Huge.
diverse. So it's not possible for one organization to do this. It's impossible. So you need a coalition of organization and it's been really amazing to organize that and see the results that comes from these dialogues.
Very cool. No, all of those programs do sound cool and also sound really important and impactful. And I think it sounds like you're on the last program kind of, drinking your own medicine a little bit in terms of trying to build organization and ecosystem for the entrepreneurs, but also for yourself as an organization working with the micro entrepreneurs. Can you talk a little bit more about some of these entrepreneurs? Maybe give us some context. So you mentioned the fashion program and you mentioned your work with people in kind of the food service, mini bars or people selling on the street and doing this. But can you talk a little bit more about the types of micro entrepreneurs you're working with and what's been like working with them? Maybe share some stories that mean a lot to you, because I think giving that sense can be really helpful.
Sure, definitely. Well, we have many, many stories, but I have a few that I really like to share because they represent really well the entrepreneurs we are supporting. And the first story is from Franciele. She's from Caruaru in the northeast of Brazil. And her story is really amazing because she came from a context of living on the streets with her kids because of violence at home. And she was supported by the social assistants in the city. So she went through all the process of recovering the dignity, recovering her identity, recovering the sense of self value. And I like to tell her story because it's important for people to understand why, for example, social assistance is so important.
Yeah.
It's impossible for you to empower or boost an entrepreneur if this person does not understand that she has value, that he has value as a person.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people that still are in this process of discovering themselves as a human being and as a person that has value and the work of their hands has value. And this is very amazing to witness when you see people discovering that the work of their hands is being valued by
Yeah.
someone when they buy the things you're doing. It's so amazing to hear the stories. People actually say, "Oh my God, they think it's beautiful," and they bought it. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, it's like a, I don't know, it's like the brain explodes. And there's something that we take for granted in our context, but for some people, it's like, wow, I can't believe something I did was considered beautiful and something actually paid money for
Yeah. I mean, I have those same questions with my consulting clients, but I think it's a little bit of a different level.
it. Definitely. So it's so amazing to witness that. So we're talking about people that really thought at some point that nothing they do or they represent had any value. So this process is really amazing. And Fran is an amazing example because she went through this process. The local secretariat for women in the city actually started to do a little workshops to do handicraft and work with soaps and perfumes. And she started to
Okay. Very
learn
cool.
that. So she started to work with handicraft soaps and she discovered a talent. And when she discovered this talent, she decided, okay, maybe I should sell this. And people started buying this and liking it. So she became an entrepreneur on the handicraft, but she started to do fairs and go in many places. Their business started to grow. But the most interesting thing about Fran, and is very, very common in most of the women entrepreneurs we support, is the time they start doing good, they share what they have learned. So what
Amazing.
she did is she created an association of women entrepreneurs in the city, in her community, and she started to share the learnings and to share the things she'd received. And that is amazing. That's why it's so powerful to support these entrepreneurs because they have power of sharing. The multiplier effect, it's so amazing. And they do a lot with very, very little resources.
Yeah.
And I mean, she represents beautifully the entrepreneurs we support. And this multiplier effect is amazing.
I can hear the passion in your voice and how much you care about this. I mean, the Fran stories are amazing, but I'm sure you run into the opposite as well. You're not working in an easy space. What has been, more difficult about building this organization, running it than maybe you thought at the outset? What have those moments been? And how do you continue to push through? Because I imagine your days are roller coasters in terms of seeing a Fran who's achieving and doing great and seeing somebody else who has all the potential and for some reason can't realize it.
Sure. There are many aspects, I think, on this initiative. You have the entrepreneurs in the field. You have seen many people prosper and growth, and we have seen people giving up
Yeah.
for reasons that are just not fair. For example, unfortunately, we still have a lot of people that, especially women, again, that they don't go through the process of capacity building or mentoring because their husbands just say, no, you cannot leave the house anymore.
Some of this is really tragic. Yeah.
Exactly. So we still have that. We still have women not having the support from their families. We still have many difficulties when it comes to the network of support. Again, especially for women entrepreneurs that have all the burden of taking care of the kids, taking care of the house, taking care of the elderly. So they don't have the structure they need to move on. So we try to provide as much as we can, but there's something that we just cannot do. You don't have daycare in the community, or the daycare is just open for a small period of time in the day. culturally speaking, all the care economy, it's over the shoulders of the women. So we still do have these many, many barriers. Actually, female entrepreneurship is coming down since the pandemic. So we have been seeing a lot of decreasing entrepreneurship among women because of all
I
these,
didn't realize.
yeah, because of all these barriers. So we are actually paying a lot of attention on that. And we have seen many people giving up. So this is an issue, and this continue to be an issue, and it's something that we continue to work on. Public policy, we need to involve public policy. There's nothing
Yeah.
different that we can do about it. If you don't have the structure, and the state need to provide at least the basic for these women to work or to have their businesses. So we still deal with a lot of these barriers. And that's why it's always amazing to see when they thrive, because they thrive in this context and they are superheroes almost. And on a perspective of an institutional level, like for Alianza, is we have been dealing with a lot of things, but I think we have a lot of learnings in terms of how we manage the team. We have suffered with things like constraint in terms of the leadership, almost burn out the leadership. But we are very lucky because we have an amazing team and we managed to change. Actually, Alianza has a very different structure. So we don't have a board anymore, a director, we don't have a CEO. We work by cells, and each cells organize themselves in projects and programs. And then we have executive committee, which is formed by representatives of every cell. So it's very
Interesting.
different. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. We have been building this new model of management for 5 years. It's working really well. So the power is more
Distributed.
distribute. Yeah, that's the word. And that makes a lot of difference. That makes us really agile. So we are more adaptable, we are more agile. So every changes that come, actually the pandemic was an amazing example because we grew a lot in 2020 and 21. And then it's like the crisis hit us and then we just
There was also more need for your help.
definitely, definitely. And we adapt, we had the ability to adapt really fast because we're very lean. So yeah, I mean, we still have a lot of issues, but we have been working on them. And I totally think it's because the team is amazing and has the power and the autonomy to adapt and build the solutions just in time.
Very cool. Can you talk on the other side about some of the like your wins? What have been some of your proudest achievements and your wins as an organization?
I'm very proud of the model we have designed in terms of the management system. I think this is a really, really cool win.
That sounds really cool and kind of innovative for an organization. I think you made the comment earlier. Sorry to cut you off. I do want your answer. But you made the comment earlier about not copying and pasting from another place. So you said when Alianza started, it grew out of this mistake and cut and paste opportunity. And what's interesting also about where you are is social programs work really well at a micro level, but they're really hard to scale. And so you see this everywhere is what worked in Curitiba. How can we replicate it in Recife? Well, Recife is different, so it's not going to work there. And so you need to be adaptable in taking these programs. And you're at an interesting nexus where you're also promoting public policy and kind of influencing it while you're doing these micro things. So I think that's really interesting is all I'm saying. But please go on about your wins and your proud achievements.
Sure. No, I always want to say that I'm really proud of the team and what we managed to do in management. There's also something that I'm really proud of is the network that we have created. So big part of why Alianza grew a lot and we are growing a lot in terms of impact and supporting the entrepreneurs is because of the network. So there's a huge network of supporters of companies and foundations that are backing up all this impact, but also we have a network of people on the ground, social organizations in the ground. We have a
Yeah.
huge group of volunteers all over the country that they replicate our methodology in their communities, in their territories. So this network of volunteers, this network of supporters and partners is so rich, and we learned a lot from this network all the time. This is also a network that helped us to create solutions that we bring to Brasilia, for example, for public policy. And yes, I need to mention the advocacy initiative as a big win. We had no idea what to expect when we started this process. We had no idea if it's going to be well accepted or not. But actually, it was a nice surprise to see that nobody was talking about micro entrepreneurship in the public policy space, and no one that was actually representing the entrepreneurs in the base of the pyramid. There are many good structures representing the small businesses, the medium businesses. But when it comes to the base of the pyramid of the entrepreneurship, there was no one talking about it in a structured way for public policy. So that was a very big win. And actually taking the entrepreneurs and the social organizations from all over the country and fly them to Brasilia and start to co-create solutions. It was something that, yeah, we're really proud of that as well.
Amazing. You've talked a lot about this idea of kind of dignity and self awareness and the importance of these micro entrepreneurs self identifying as entrepreneurs and learning that they are entrepreneurs. And I remember learning that the word for entrepreneur, empreendedor, didn't exist in Portuguese. I don't know if it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, however many years ago it was, but I imagine around the time you started. And so the other piece of it being a lot of times when we talk about entrepreneur, we're talking about somebody that's building a venture backed business and trying to be, the next Facebook or the next Google or whatever it might be. What does the word emprendedor mean to you based on your work and your experience?
Sure. So for us, entrepreneurship is a force for transformation. For us, an entrepreneur is someone that actually transform their life through a business, through an endeavor, through a social organization, through a social venture, through a small restaurant or a small local NGO, but is someone that is actually changing and transforming lives. So yeah, we see entrepreneurship in a broader way in this way. So we definitely believe that the entrepreneurs we are supporting, they have a social impact that is so amazing, even though they just have a small restaurant. And you could look at that and see it's just a normal business or a traditional business, but actually what's behind that and the impact behind that, it's amazing. In Brazil specifically, we have been taking care a lot when we talk about entrepreneurship as well is to really define what we're talking about because we have the gig economy here. We have people working as
Yeah.
Uber and
iFood. Yeah.
iFood delivery and everything. So we do have differences. There are some people that maybe Uber and maybe entrepreneurs, but not every Uber is an entrepreneur. So we actually need to differentiate that as well because sometimes it's just a temporary job
Yeah.
of
Or a side
need
thing.
of
Yeah.
a side thing because you need to generate income. And so we really take care a lot to don't be confused entrepreneurship with I don't know the name in English, but with
Use the name in Portuguese. It's okay.
precarizado, like in
Fractional
English.
work, I guess, maybe? Like
Yeah, so
part-time, yeah.
it's not the part-time, but something that is not dignified. So if
Okay, yeah, yeah, okay.
it's a work that is, you know what I mean?
Like
Oh, the line
fragile.
is fragile, maybe.
Yeah, the direct translation would be fragile, but it doesn't quite work. But I think I know what you're talking about, and we'll come to it as soon as we stop recording, of course, because that's usually how this goes. But I think I understand what you mean by, on the one side, kind of dignified versus undignified work, and on the other side,
Perfect.
kind of full-time entrepreneur versus part-time temporary job or side hustle or temporary solution in general. So somebody that's an Uber between jobs, not meaning to kind of dedicate themselves to it, or that's doing something on the side, but to generate income, not to generate a career path or anything like that, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah. So the thing is, the entrepreneurs can be born from many different activities. So we start as an Uber, you can become an entrepreneur when you discover something about yourself in that activity that makes sense to you. Then you start treating that as a business. That's one thing. So it doesn't matter the activity, it doesn't matter if it's part time or full time activity, but it's about the attitude you have to that activity. This is one thing.
Yeah.
The thing is, we don't want to romanticize entrepreneurship in the sense of that, oh, you became a delivery guy. Congratulations, you're an entrepreneur, because sometimes that is not an entrepreneur in the sense of he's just having this very fragile, very not dignified job. And
Yeah.
so we don't want to clap to that.
Understood.
So we really need to invest in dignify the jobs and the micro entrepreneurs because at the end of the day, they are workers and they hustle a lot. So we want to move to a more dignified work.
Right. And for them to feel that themselves, right? For them to seek dignified work, I think is also important.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think we could spend a lot more time talking about the Frans of the world and hearing these stories. This is really incredible. I'm really happy that we did this and I was able to learn more about the organization and the work that you do. Like I said before, I think I can sense your passion as we're coming through for the positive as well as the impact that it has on you when you think about the people that you've worked with and the impact that you've had. But heading towards the end of our conversation here, I always like to ask people what the expression Brazil is not for beginners means to you, which
Yeah.
of course comes from the famous Tom Jobim quote. And I think you probably have a unique perspective on it working with so many people that are living a difficult life in Brazil.
Yeah, definitely. For me, Brazil is not for beginners is seeing the entrepreneurs, we see that they adapt a lot. So we have witnessed the entrepreneurs in Brazil, they have developed this ability of adaptation to many different conditions. So
Yeah.
they migrate, they change the address, and they need to change the things they're doing. Something that is very, very common here is to see an entrepreneur that already had like 10 different activities, and it changed depending on the season, depending on which city he's doing, depending on the trends that were set by the soap operas, so Brazilians are very creative, they are very adaptive. And so that would represent for me is to be an entrepreneur in Brazil, you need to be very creative, very adaptive, and to understand that nothing stays the same, never.
No.
There is like a tagline from a radio here in Brazil
Yeah.
that says in 20 minutes everything can change.
Yep.
And that's the reality here.
Very cool. I like that explanation. I also like to ask everybody that comes on about a Brazilian expression or a Brazilian habit, but I actually want to ask you a little bit more about Curitiba and the south of Brazil. So I think a lot of my guests come from the southeast, from the Rio, Sao Paulo states. And I did
Hmm.
an episode last season with somebody from the Northeast talking about why the Northeast is different. So if you could share just for a few minutes about the south of Brazil and Curitiba in specific and kind of what's great and unique about it.
So, talking about specifically Curitiba, it's a city where people are very living in their bubbles.
Okay. Interesting.
Right? To feel more secure. So it's like a huge contrast with, I don't know, Rio or the northeast of the country, many states in the northeast. Here it's a colder city where people are living their own bubbles, they have their own group of friends. People don't go to each other's homes all the time. There's an interesting history of the city because it was built in a route of commerce,
Okay.
like, I don't know, hundreds of years ago. And people here that were established in this region were fooled by the commerce all the time because a lot of travelers and commerce groups were passing by, and they were very clever and they were taking advantage of the people that were very naive in the region.
You would take advantage. That's interesting. I didn't know this.
So they were always being fooled all the time and taking advantage in terms of the prices of the goods and everything. So they develop a culture of being very, how do you say, desconfiado.
Standoffish or not trusting, right? Skeptical.
Yeah, skeptical, not trusting. So they're very like that. They take care of the people they become friends with. It's very interesting to see. But there are people that are very faithful once they are your friends.
Okay.
They are very hardworking people and very faithful at the end of the day. Once they build the trust, I mean, you can trust them. So it's a very interesting culture.
Yeah. Very cool. I've also, learned that the south of Brazil is the more European. So it's almost more similar to like Uruguay or Argentina in
Yeah.
some respects because it was more German and Italian settlers than in the north and the southeast. So sometimes people will tell me they want to move to the south because it's more organized, right? The trains run on time, the buses run on time, more likely, but very cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's an awesome city. At least, especially Curitiba is amazing in terms of the public transportation. I think it won like the smart city in the world, something like that last year.
Very cool. Also an emerging tech ecosystem there as well. So a city for people to check out.
Yes, definitely.
I actually have never been to Curitiba, but it's on my list very high. But Lina, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these stories and your story. This was really amazing. I'm
You're welcome. It was amazing.
really, really happy we did this. How can people reach you and how can people learn more about Aliança Empreendedora?
So you can go to our website and maybe we can put it here. It's aliancaempreendedora.org.br. So it's very updated. And our Instagram page, Aliança Empreendedora, is the most updated thing ever.
Amazing.
So everything we have there, opportunities, awards, and everything we are promoting to the micro entrepreneurs are there. But I think our website is the best hub for people to go to find information about Aliança.
Great. And they can reach the organization there, right? On both places. So if people are interested, they can engage.
Yes, if you're interested as a potential partner or as an entrepreneur looking for support, you can reach us through those channels.
Or mentor, right? I think that's also part of this.
Or to become a mentor. Yes, definitely.
Very cool. Lina, thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoyed
Thank
listening.
you.
I learned a lot and really enjoyed this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isaac.
Thanks again for joining us. This podcast was hosted by me, Isaac Matzner. It was produced and edited by Maria Filmis. You can find more episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube, as well as on our Substack page. We do love feedback, so please feel free to reach out to us on social media or via email at Brazil4beginners@gmail.com.